Hi boys, I hope online learning's treating you well. I've had a lot of emails come through asking for what can we do around woodwork, or is there any basic woodwork projects we can do at home. So we got together here and thought, why not make a small planter box? Now the idea of this is you don't need a huge workshop, you don't need anything more than just basic hand tools. So I'll show you some tips and tricks as to how you can go about making this little planter box. To start with, you'll need some material. So I'm using pine here. This is 90 by 12 mil. You can use anything for this. Might be a bit of wood lying around the shed or the garden or wherever you can find some, but please, whatever you do, don't go out and spend a fortune. As far as tools go, we're going to need a hammer, some nails. If you have a drill, that'd be great. If you don't, doesn't matter. Same for the glue. If you got some glue, great. If not, no worries. Sandpaper. I'm using 120 grit. You can use anything, whatever's lying around really. A handsaw, a tape measure or ruler. You could probably do most of this with a ruler. If you have a tape measure, that might help you out a bit too. And then obviously if we're marking out, we'll need a pencil. And again, if you have a set square, otherwise you'll get away with your ruler. And of course, don't forget your safety glasses if you have some. I've made this planter box about 350, so 35 centimeters by about 120, 12 centimeters. You can make this thing any size, it's entirely up to you. The reason I chose this size is it's nice and small, can sit in the kitchen, living room, easy access, or we could even put it outside. So the choice on the dimensions is entirely up to you and your abilities and what you've got available. The first thing I want to do is mark out our pieces. So to make our planter box, I'm going to need 2 sides at 120 millimeters and 3 pieces at 350 millimeters. The reason I need 3 is because I'm obviously going to need a base. You'll notice my piece of wood, I've put on a little scribble there which shows me my face side and my face edge. So basically, all my marking out comes from this line. And that's really important if we're using hand tools because it gives us a common reference point. Some of our hand tools, our hand sawing for example, might not be very good or a bit out of practice like mine. If we've got a nice line the whole way around our piece of material, we've got a guide and a reference point that if we need to, we can sand it down later and work from there nice and neat. So using my face edge, I've already started on this piece here. I've basically gone along with my ruler and marked out 120 mils, 350, 350, and I've already cut one of the 120s. A good idea here is to leave a 5 mil gap. Now I know we're all pretty good with our skills, but trying to saw on a pencil line is impossible. So the 5 mil gap gives us a bit of room to actually saw on. This is where the set square comes in handy. I can actually use it to transfer my line the whole way around my piece of material. And you'll see there I've moved the square in a particular way. The reason for that is so the handle's always touching the face side there or the face edge. And that way my line should be nice and straight the whole way around. Now when it comes to sawing, again I'm lucky here, I've got a workbench, a vise, I've got a bench hook. You might not have that at home. So you can do this on the edge of a bench. You might be able to hold it like so. You might be able to put it on a chair and saw it on a chair or a bench, whatever's available to you. Whatever you do, don't do it in mum's kitchen or on the dining room table. Try and do it outside somewhere nice and clean and out of sight. When I'm sawing, it's like holding a pistol if you like. I point my index finger down the saw and it keeps the saw nice and straight. So actually, I don't get a lot of wobble. Hold it nice and tight, nice and comfortable. If we think about the sawing process, I'm actually locking my shoulder and my wrist and I'm just following through in one motion to get it nice and straight. I'm not pushing down on the saw. A lot of people think the faster and the harder they push down on the saw, the quicker it'll cut. That's not true. Let the saw do the work. So nice and light with the saw. A couple of backward strokes to get it going. And then I can slowly now cut this. There's one of my sides that are cut there. And if you look really close, you can just see a little bit of pencil line there, which is what you want. Because of that 5mm gap, I've got about 4mm of material left. So I'm going to cut that off now as well. You'd note I'm using the whole saw. The saw's about 30 centimetres long for a reason. 30 centimetres worth of teeth, and I'm cutting about 1 stroke a second. The tendency is to do little cuts. That just wastes your time and you'll be here forever. So I've gone through and cut all my pieces now. You'll notice where I've cut them, there's a bit of an edge. It's called an arris, which is basically where the saw's broken through and the wood's sort of splintered. So our sandpaper here will help us clean that up. If you haven't cut a very straight line or you've got a bit of saw marks there, it's also a good time to clean that up as well. Before we put our box together, you could imagine trying to sand it when it's all put together. So this is a good time to sand all the pieces as clean as we can. Just make sure you're sanding with the grain, so that the grain are the lines on the piece of material. If I go across the grain, I'll scratch it. And if I'm going to paint it, it's going to show through. So make sure you sand up and down with the grain. So now I've sanded my pieces, and I've got my 2 sides, my 2 ends and the base. Let's have a look at how we put it together. I'm going to start on the base. Now, I've put a centre line down here, and the reason for that is to drill 3 holes. The holes allow for drainage, and they also let the soil breathe, and hopefully they'll lead to the planter lasting a bit longer than if it all just held the moisture from when you're watering the herbs. From there, I again use my ruler and my math skills, which aren't very good, to split that line into 3 even parts. Now, even though these holes, they'll never be seen, because as you could imagine, that'll be full of soil. We'll never see those holes, but it's always nice to have a nice, neat, professional looking job. So that's why I mark these out nice and evenly. Now, I'm lucky I have a spade bit here. Basically, it's a wide drill bit, which drills a large hole. If you don't have a spade bit, you might just have to drill more holes with a smaller drill bit. Not heaps, maybe 5 or 6. Now my spade bit's good, it's got a nice little sharp point on it if you like. I can put that on my hole and stand it up and then just give it a light push. And what that'll do is make a nice little indent. So my spade bit will drill where I want it to drill. Again, if you have a vise, you could use the vise to do this. Otherwise, just lean on it like I am, or clamp it to the bench if you have a clamp. The last thing we want is this piece of material spinning around and going everywhere. You'll notice with my spade bit, I've only drilled halfway through. The point has actually come out the other side, so therefore I can come around this side and finish drilling my hole. If I just came through from this side, what would happen is my wood would splinter and then it wouldn't look very nice, it'd crack. So little tip there is to drill halfway, turn it over and finish drilling. You can see there I've got my hole. I'll just go through and finish the rest. So that's my base taken care of. And again, I'll just give that a quick sand just to get rid of any marks, because it's a lot easier now before we start assembling. We'll put the base away for now and come back to that. The next thing is the sides. Here's my two sides, again 350 millimeters long, and I've started marking them out for my base. You can see the base here it's not quite on the bottom, it's actually recessed a bit. The reason for that is it allows a bit of airflow, it allows any water to drain out the bottom of the planter box. It also looks a bit neater, and it just stops any condensation or build up of moisture underneath the planter box. And we all know with wood, moisture condensation often leads to degradation of it, so falling apart if you like. So with my ruler, I've marked up about 18 millimeters. And the reason for that is, we'll come back to in a minute, a little trick there to getting it all together. And again, I've gone through, I'm going to use 3 nails. Depending on the size of your planter, you might do one half as big, twice as long. You might need more nails. Here I've just found the middle again, which is 175, and I've marked in about 30 mil from the ends. And just put a little cross where I'm going to nail. Now with the nailing, it's very easy to bend nails. A little trick to not bending nails is to clean the head of your hammer. And the easiest way to do that is with some old sandpaper and just give it a bit of a rub. And basically what that does is it smooths it out, shines it up a little bit so it's nice and clean, and hopefully it won't bend any nails. Now I've got access to glue, and because of that I'm only using short nails. These wouldn't even be 30 millimeters long, it'd be about 25 millimeters long. Now I probably could use 30 mil nails. The purpose of the nail is just to hold the wood together while the glue's drying. Once the glue's dried, the nail's pretty much served his purpose, so he's obsolete then. If you don't have glue, try and get access to some longer nails, maybe 30, 40 mil nails, or maybe put 4 nails in instead of 3, because you'd be surprised how heavy this thing is when it's full of soil and herbs. So again to help with splitting, if you like, a little trick is to hammer the end of the nail. If I put the nail on its head and just tap it, it takes the sharpness, if you like, out of the nail. So when I nail it in, hopefully it won't split my wood. And again, I marked in 30 millimeters here, because if I'm too close to the edge, the chances of my timber splitting are a little bit higher. So what I'm going to go and do now is nail 3 nails on each piece, just so they poke through the back. You can see how I'm letting the hammer do all the work. I'm just letting it fall and it's doing it for me. If I hold it too close to the head, the neck, I'm losing the benefit of the lever being the handle. And again, that's how you bend nails. That's how it becomes woodwork and not wood easy. You can see my nails have only just come through the back. Now we're going to fix it to the base. Ideally, when you're nailing, you want your nail to go through the middle of the piece you're nailing into, certainly if we're nailing onto an edge. If it's too high or too low, it might splinter, it might break out. I'm just going to clamp my base in the vise nice and light. And what I can do now that my nails have come out the back, we'll come back to this line here I told you about. Remember we marked it in 18 millimeters? 18 millimeters is 12 plus 6, 18. 12 being the thickness of our material, 6 being half of 12, so the halfway point. So hopefully our nails will hit halfway onto our base. I've also marked that line down the edge on each side. So when I go nailing it into my base, I've got a reference point there for the middle, if you like. So what I'm going to do here is, using the vise, I'm just going to line that up best I can. And our pine is quite soft, so I can do this with pine. If you're strong, you might be able to do it with jarrah or a hardwood. All I want to do here is make a little mark. So I've lined up the edges there in the middle, and I'm just going to push it. You might have heard the wood splintering, if you like. And what that's done is it's put a little spot or a little point into my base of where the nail is going to go through. So I'll show you this side in the vise. I have glue. If you don't have glue, that's all right. You probably don't need to do this stage. If you do have glue, you can see there I've put it on. Don't leave it like that. Basically rub it in with your finger. What that does is it removes all the air bubbles in the glue. So that long thin line of glue is full of air bubbles. And what we want to do is remove them. And the reason for that is when I push my side back on and nail it on, we get a nice seal happening, if you like. There's no air there. We should technically get a stronger joint, hopefully. So now I've already marked that. My nails will relocate where they were before I put the glue on, and then I can just finish nailing that in. You can see there, if you've put enough glue on there, you should get a bit of glue squeezing out, but it doesn't matter if you don't. That's a nice strong joint. When that glue dries, the timber will actually break on the grain before the glue does. Now, to do the other side without a vise, it's the exact same process. You might need somebody to help hold the base for you, but it's the exact same process. Line up the edges as best you can and push till you hear the nails locate. If you don't have glue, now you can nail it in. Because I've got glue, I'll put a little bit of glue on there. And again, spread the air out of the glue. I've already got my nail holes, they'll relocate for me. Hopefully. Yep. And now again, you might need someone to hold this for you, but if you're careful, it should be all right. So as you can see, there's my planter box body, if you like, and it looks a little bit out of square. What I mean by that is it looks like it's on an angle. We're going to use our ends now to square that up. Again, if you've got the glue, a little bit of glue. I'm just going to be a little bit more generous with the glue. Not crazy amounts, just a little bit more, because it will absorb and it will soak in to the end grain a lot quicker. Now to get this box square, I'm going to work from one side. So basically I'm going to fit one side on nice and even, and then adjust the rest of the box to sort of hopefully square it up. Again, the exact same process as fitting the sides to fitting the ends. I've marked my 18mm line down the bottom, and this is where it'll get a bit tricky. I've put a 6mm line down the sides, and hopefully I'll find the end grain without splitting it. So I'm going to start on one side here. Now you can see That's gone in, but that side's way out of square. So this is where I'm able to now square it up a little bit. Takes a little bit of muscle work, but you get there pretty easy. You might like to use a clamp to help you with this, or someone else in the family who's a bit stronger. I've only used 3 nails here. You could probably get away with using 2 on the sides and 2 on the bottom. Again, because it's end grain, the chances of it pulling out are a little bit higher. It's not going to happen on a planter box, but it's a good habit to get into. And again, repeat on the other side. You can see it's still a little bit out of square, so it's not quite even, but by following the same process, it'll even up nicely for us. Little bit of muscle, not that I got much of that. And there is basically our planter box constructed. I'd let this sit for about a day. Glue gets stronger the longer you leave it. Of course, if you haven't glued it, you don't have to worry about this step. Once the glue dries, it's an opportunity now to go over it really, really detailed with your sandpaper. Get it all nice and clean. Paint it a colour of your choice. You'll see here I've put like a black paint on the inside. It sort of seals the wood off. So again, it doesn't rot away as quickly as it will. It'll probably rot in about 30 years, but we want it to last a little bit. So once the glue's dry, you've sanded it, you paint it as a colour of your choice, there's your planter box. Happy planting.